Ashes in the Wind. Introduction. War doesn't always leave with the last bullet. It hides, in broken fences, in bitter stares, in silence at the dinner table. The fire may stop, but the heat remains. And in a small village called Keru, where the earth still smelled of gunpowder and memory, a man returned. Not as a soldier, not as a hero, but as a boy who had once burned bridges, and now came back to rebuild them. His name was Malik. 10 years ago, he left in anger, fists closed, heart loud. He joined a group, held a gun, lost himself in a cause that didn't know his name. Now, barefoot and older, he returned to the place that still saw him as the boy who left smoke behind. He didn't speak of the war. He spoke of a dream, to rebuild the old village school, burned in a raid. Not because it was easy, not because they asked him, but because he had once lit the fire, and now, he wanted to build something that could not burn. The elders watched him. The children whispered. The ground itself seemed unsure. But he began anyway. With bricks. With silence. With guilt, yes, but also with truth. Because sometimes, the only way to carry ash is to use it to grow something better. Chapter 1. The Return Without Welcome. The sun had already begun to fall when Malik reached the edge of Keru. The road was narrower than he remembered. The trees, fewer. The silence, deeper. He walked with a sack on his back. Inside, a change of clothes, a worn trowel, and a letter from the district council, granting him permission to help rebuild community infrastructure. But no letter could rewrite the past. 10 years ago, Malik had left this place in smoke. He was 17. Angry. Convinced that the elders were liars. Convinced that those who promised revolution would give him something more than poverty. What they gave him instead was a gun, orders, and years he could never get back. He entered the village like a ghost. Old men paused. Mothers pulled children closer. A dog growled low from under a mango cart. Is that? It can't be. He came back. He greeted no one at first. Just walked to the edge of the old school, or what remained of it. A burnt-out shell. Cracked walls. The black marks of fire still kissed the stone like a scar. Malik stood there, removed his cap, and whispered, almost to the wind, "This is where I begin." That evening, he met with the village chief, old and slower now, but still upright. The chief stared at him for a long time, then said, "We buried people after that fire. You walked away from this soil." Malik nodded. "And I came back to plant something in it." "Words are easy," the chief said. "Bricks are harder. Trust is heaviest." Malik reached into his sack and placed the trowel on the table. "Then let me lift the heaviest part." The chief said nothing, but he did not send him away. Malik slept that night on the old school floor. No roof, just stars. No bed, just dust. But he slept. Because he knew, the first step of rebuilding is not laying bricks. It is being willing to sleep in your own ashes. Chapter 2. The Bricks and the Bystanders. The morning after his return, Malik rose with the sun. No one greeted him. No one helped. He fetched water from the well alone. Cleared the rubble with bare hands. Lifted stones until his back bent like the trees that had once shaded this land. Children watched from behind fences. Their parents told them not to speak. "That is the man who left us to burn," one mother whispered. "Let the fire carry its own smoke." Still, Malik worked. He set up a line of bricks, mixed sand with water, poured it slow, and began laying the first layer. Not fast, not proud, just truth, pressed into mortar. By the third day, a boy approached. Maybe 10. Barefoot. Sharp eyes. He didn't speak, just sat and watched. Malik looked at him. Nodded. On the 5th day, the boy returned. This time with a small tin of nails and a hammer too light to matter. He placed it beside Malik and said, "They were my grandfather's. Use them." Malik took them. Didn't speak. But when the boy returned the next day, he found Malik had fixed a cracked doorframe using the nails, carefully, respectfully. The boy smiled, and the corner of the village began to breathe again. Still, the elders stayed silent. One came to the chief and said, "Are we to forget the fire?" And the chief replied, "We are not asked to forget it. We are being asked if it can be used to build a roof." One morning, it rained. Not heavy, but enough to turn the dust to mud. Malik stood in it, alone, lifting, mixing, his shirt soaked, his hands shaking. He didn't leave the site. By evening, 2 women brought him a calabash of millet porridge and left it beside the wall, without a word. He ate it slowly, under what little shade remained. That night, Malik sat on the half-wall and wrote in his notebook, "Trust is not asked for. It is earned, 1 brick, 1 silence, 1 storm at a time." Chapter 3. The Man with the Scar. The school wall now stood shoulder-high. Windows shaped but empty. The skeleton of a roof lay in piles nearby, waiting. Malik worked slower now, not from laziness, but from care. He measured twice, checked everything 3 times. Because this time, what he built had to last longer than he did. That morning, as he lifted a plank, he heard the voice. Still building, after all these years. It was calm, but sharp. Malik turned, and froze. Standing there was Jallo. Older now, beard thicker, eyes colder. He had been Malik's childhood friend. Until they joined the same armed group. Until that night in the village. Until Malik walked away from violence, and Jallo didn't. Malik said nothing. Jallo stepped closer, hands in his pockets. "So this is your redemption?" he asked. "Bricks and sweat? What? You build one school and the dead forgive you." Malik kept working. "I'm not here for forgiveness," he said. "I'm here because I once helped burn this place down. Now I want to give something that can't be erased." Jallo scoffed. "I stayed in the fight. You ran. Don't act holy now." Malik paused, wiped his hands, faced him fully. "You stayed in the fire because you couldn't face the silence. I came back to it. That's harder." Jallo's face twitched. His hand tightened into a fist. A long scar ran along his left jaw, a reminder of a battle neither of them had won. "You think these people want you here?" Jallo hissed. "They'll always see you as ash." Malik didn't flinch. "Then let me be ash. But let me be the kind that feeds something better." Jallo stood quiet for a long time. Then, without a word, he turned and walked away, into the shadows of a path he had chosen long ago. Malik watched him go. Not with anger. Not with fear. But with a sadness that understood. Because some people carry fire not in their hands, but in their hearts, and no water can reach it. That night, Malik wrote, "You don't have to win every fight with words. You just have to keep building after the shouting stops." Chapter 4. The First Hand. The sky above Keruu was clearer than it had been in weeks. The dust had settled. The bricks were rising. And the story of Malik, the boy who left, the man who returned, now traveled beyond whispers. Some still watched with arms folded. Some still crossed the road when he passed. But something had changed. The work was visible now. And visibility makes people choose to stay hardened or to soften. On the 15th day of building, as Malik mixed cement near the future entrance of the school, a hand reached into the bucket beside him. It was old, calloused, but steady. Malik turned. Standing beside him was Madam Ladi, the midwife. She had delivered more babies in Keruu than anyone could count. Her voice was sharp, but her hands had saved lives. She said nothing, just picked up a brick, pressed it down beside his, straightened it. "Crooked walls raise crooked minds," she muttered. "If we're building a school, it better not lean." Malik said nothing, but his throat tightened. She kept working, 15 minutes, then 20. Then left. No farewell. No words. But she came back the next day. Then came Kojo, the carpenter. He brought tools. Scraps. Measured beams. Replaced Malik's tired hammer with one that actually worked. I hate silence, Kojo said. But worse is pretending a man doesn't exist when he's sweating for you. A boy brought nails. A girl brought chalk. An old man brought chairs. Little by little, the village came closer, not with speeches, but with small pieces of trust. One night, the chief visited. He stood at the gate of the school compound, watched the roof rising, watched Malik sweeping the floor before lying down. The first school here, he said quietly, was built when I was a child. We learned under that tree until someone gave us shade. Malik looked up. I'm not here to replace what was lost. The chief nodded. No. You're here to remind us it can be rebuilt. That matters. Then he walked off, leaving only his footprints in the dust. That night, Malik stared at the roof beams, half finished. He didn't smile. He didn't cry. He just whispered, "Let the fire feed the future this time." Chapter 5. The day before the bell. The roof was finished. The walls were plastered. The windows, new, donated by a cousin of Kojo's, let in soft morning light. The blackboard, painted with coal and patience, waited silently for chalk to begin its dance again. After weeks of building, sweating, and swallowing silence, the school was ready. A new generation would walk in where flames once danced, and Malik, he stood at the doorway like a man between two lives. That morning, the chief called for a gathering. Under the tree, as it had always been. Children sat in front, elders behind them. The school just behind Malik, standing tall, not proud, but at peace. The chief rose slowly and spoke. What was taken from us in fire has been returned in silence. What was broken by a hand has been mended by the same hand. He paused. Today, we do not erase what happened. We simply agree that the rebuilding is real. He turned to Malik. Will you stay and teach? He asked. The people looked up. Even those who had not spoken to him waited. But Malik, quietly, shook his head. I am not the teacher. I am only the builder. Let someone with clean memory fill these rooms. There was silence. Then a voice from the crowd, a woman Malik had never seen before. You came back when most would have hidden. That is teaching. And that was enough. Malik left the school that evening. No speech, no reward, just footprints in the dust and hands that had finally laid down their guilt. He walked out of Karoo the same way he came in. Alone. But this time, he did not carry ash. He left it behind, in walls, in windows, and in the soft hush of children about to learn again. Dedication. To the rebuilders, those who do not run from what they've broken, but return with tools in hand. And to the forgivers, who do not pretend to forget, but choose to give the future a foundation anyway. May your ashes give rise to something greater. May your silence become shelter. A man cannot heal a place until he kneels on the ground he once harmed. Closing message to the listener. Thank you for listening to Ashes in the Wind. This was a story about returning. About how broken things don't always need to be buried. Sometimes, they need to be faced, brick by brick. Malik was not a hero. He was not perfect. He was simply a man who decided that guilt should not end in silence, but in service. If you've ever made a mistake, if you've ever wanted to fix something you once broke, may this story remind you, you are still allowed to build. Until the next story, walk gently, and leave behind something that cannot burn.